Now sure, you can still eat these affected leaves, right? But I just want to give you a sense of how deep whatever it was went into these. And you know, at the height of the season when I would want to eat these, it could be that these insects went in and have already come back out. Hey, it's Greg here with maritimegardening.com, and I think I'm going to use a fairly provocative title for this video, which is something along the lines of I wish I'd used more pesticide, which is a strange thing to hear coming out of the mouth of a permaculture, no-till organic gardener. So let me explain a little bit. So I do use pesticides in my garden. I use 3. I use something called Safer's End All. I use another one called Safer's Slug and Snail Killer. And I use another one called BTK. I can't remember. I'll put the actual name of what that is. It's a kind of bacteria. Early in the season when the plants are really tiny, for the most part in my garden, you know, I'll put some down. Maybe 2 weeks later I'll put a little bit more down, and then I'll have to use it for the rest of the season, right? So that would be when the plants are really tiny and where a slug or a snail can kill the whole plant. And there's, you know, lots of different strategies people talk about. You know, a long list of things that are purported to deal with slugs and snails. I've tried all of them, and nothing is reliable as that. All it does is give them an iron overdose. They get more iron. You need iron, snails need iron. As far as I know, every mammal, just about every living thing needs iron. Even the plants need iron. But there's an amount of iron that will kill, it is toxic or will kill a snail, and there's an amount of iron that will kill you and me, that you just can't handle. Anyway, I use that, and then when I don't seem to need it anymore, I stop using it. And just, you know, I still get slug and snail damage all season long, but I'm inclined to just, so it never wipes out the entire population. They're always around. And I guess to the point of people saying, oh, those sand pathways must prevent slugs and snails. No, it doesn't do anything. They, you know, basically any garden with something in it that slugs and snails like, they find their way to that garden and they go to town. By the way, most of those things can travel underground, right? So they're a lot more mobile and they can get to things a lot better than you think. And a lot of stuff people think the texture is a bit rough and they can't get over it. The only thing I know of that they don't like is diatomaceous earth, which is a really good solution if you live somewhere that doesn't have mist and dew and fog and rain and all that sort of stuff. It has to stay dry to be effective. Nothing ever stays dry here. There might be 3 or 4 weeks of the year where it's relatively dry at the height of summer, and that's not the time of the year I really worry about slugs and snails. It's April, May, June, right? That's when they're sort of doing the most damage because the plants are so small and so vulnerable. Anyway, I use that, and I'm going to show you. This is a cabbage garden that this is my first year growing cabbage in a while, and I normally grow collard greens because I find them much more pest proof. Once they get to a certain size, I almost don't need to do anything with them unless they're getting you know, attacked by the small white, which is a little white butterfly that lays eggs, and they become little camouflage caterpillars and they do a lot of damage. But generally speaking, some plants are more susceptible to that than others, even within this Brassica family. Cabbage, collard greens, kale, that's all brassicas, right? Some kinds of kale seem to get more slug, snail, everything attacks than others. I don't quite understand that, but also some kinds of kale taste better than others, so perhaps to the insects, some kinds taste better than them as well. Anyway, I didn't use BTK at all anywhere in my garden this year, and I probably should have. I should have used it at least once, you know. I don't use a lot of it. The previous year I didn't use it at all. The year before I needed to use it. The year before that I really needed to use it. I thought I had achieved a balance of the kinds of caterpillars that BTK wipes out and the kind of predators that take out those caterpillars. So I thought I'd gotten to a point where I didn't need it anymore. But these definitely were attacked by that. And I just kept waiting for the predator insects to show up and to solve my problem for me. And I mean, I got kale right over there. Looks gorgeous. Look, I'll show you. All right, so this is gorgeous kale, right? I didn't use anything with that, nothing. And turned out great, right? So I didn't need to do anything with that. but this cabbage definitely had that problem, and I saw them around, in addition to other things, right? And I suppose if I were to grow this cabbage again, which I probably won't, I think I'm going to go back to collard greens. I think you get more bang for your buck with a collard green, and they're more pest proof, straight up, at least in my experience. It could just be this variety of cabbage, I don't know. But if I was going to use anything, like maybe once a week or probably once every 2 weeks. I don't tend to like using a lot of any of these things. I would have used the Safer's End-All, which is just, you know, a couple chemical compounds that break down very quickly. Uses a chemical compound that's found in chrysanthemums, and so it's, you know, and what's it called? Potassium salts of fatty acids, I think, is the other thing, which is kind of like an insecticidal soap, basically. So these are chemical compounds that break down very quickly. They don't persist in the soil. They just, you know, use a little bit of it. The sun breaks them down. They break down very fast, and they turn into other chemical compounds that, I mean, there's a million different kinds of combinations of chemical compounds in your soil. None of them are a problem. And the End-All basically breaks down into those sorts of things. That's the simplest way to put it, so I don't worry about it. For this cabbage, if I was to grow it again, I would have hit it with a dose of that maybe once every 2 weeks, just to mitigate. Now, I mean, we're getting to the point of the year. Here's one here growing that really doesn't seem to have, no, it's regrowing. This is one I already cut off. I can see where it's healed itself. Anyway, this isn't getting attacked at all now, because we're getting frost at night, and you know, all the pest problems just sort of disappear once you start getting frost at night. Anyway, here's one that was attacked a lot. Okay, I'm going to bring the camera in close so you can see. We're going to do a little dissection here. All right, let's just cut this thing open here. Oh my goodness. All right, now imagine I'm in my kitchen and I want to use this cabbage. Looks pretty good, right? So I start removing leaves. The leaves have holes in them. That's not such a big problem, but they have like insect poop on them, right? So I remove a leaf, remove another leaf, remove another leaf. You can see they've burrowed into it, whatever these were. Remove another leaf. Remove another leaf. Now, sure, you can still eat these affected leaves, right? But I just want to give you a sense of how deep whatever it was went into these. And you know, at the height of the season, when I would want to eat these, it could be that these insects went in and have already come back out. They basically went in, made their babies, you know, found a nice, delicious, safe place to hide, made their babies, and then are gone. Still peeling off layers here. And, you know, and Safer's are my sponsors, you know, but I certainly don't get enough money from them to lie. So I'm giving it to you. No, I'm keeping it 100 here. Okay, so now this is what I got. I basically had to toss half the plant, half the mass of the plant, to arrive at a nice, clean, usable, you know, sort of unaffected piece of vegetable. Not the end of the world, right? But yeah, I wish I'd given these a blast of Safer's End-All once every couple weeks for the entire season, which I don't do that with anything in my garden. You know, most of the things I grow in the garden, I don't use anything at all. You know, and I only use any of those 3 products I mentioned on things that seem to need it when they seem to need it, and then I stop. Because it's just work. I don't want to have to do work. But for this thing here, which seemed to be, I guess from an insect point of view, the most delicious thing in my garden, good old, you know, the ultimate peasant food sort of thing, cabbage, right? Which I must have an inner peasant because I love cabbage. But yeah, I wish I'd been a bit more proactive with this. So just a short little video about being proactive, and you know, when you've got pest problems, what can happen if you don't deal with them? Now this is not the end of the world. I still have something I can use here, right? But I'd rather be able to use a lot more of the plant than have to toss so much of it, right? And yeah, if I lived alone by myself, I would eat more of the plant. That is to say, I'm not bothered by any of this pest stuff. But when you're trying to get young kids to eat stuff, if you have dinner guests and all that sort of stuff, things have to look like they came from a grocery store. And that's how much I had to toss of the plant to get it to look that way, right? And also all those other parts had like excrement and stuff like that on them, which, yeah, can be washed off. But anyway, you sort of get where I'm coming from, right? So yeah, just some things to think about. For pest problems, sure, there's an incredible list of folk remedies, traditional solutions, organic solutions, beer baths, all that sort of stuff. And all those things work to some extent, but I have found over the course of my time as a gardener that when you've got an extreme pest problem, very few of those things work well. They don't work as well as just applying something that's toxic to the insect you don't want. And it just basically every insect that shows up for a week gets eliminated by that thing. It does not change the insect population. I mean, I use a bit of this stuff every year. I still have tons of slugs and tons of snails and every other kind of pest you can imagine. Flea beetles, aphids, you name it, right? They're all here. Every single pest is here. They've got a wonderful place to live and they got plenty of things to work on here, okay? And for me, it's just about keeping the population to a level where I get to eat the food too, right? That's what's important to me. So I found that to be, in a garden on the scale I'm gardening here, 2,500 square foot garden, it's the most time-effective way to mitigate pests that are attacking plants that are susceptible to pests. Another great solution is to just plant a lot of things that pests aren't that much of a problem. Like I plant a lot of potatoes and they attack the foliage, but they leave the potatoes alone, right? So that's a great way to deal with it. I just let the pests do the thing, right? But anyway, I think I've made my point. For these plants here, I wish I'd used some Safer Zendol. And probably a little bit more, there were slugs in these. When I would pull these things apart, it's getting cold now, right? But when I would pull these things apart in, September, there was all kinds of slugs in them, living, these little black slugs, really weird looking black slugs, but there was slugs in them, right? Just doing whatever they do in there, right? So I probably should have used some of the slug bait, maybe given that a dose every 2 weeks as well. I'm not saying, again, don't do that in every one of your beds. Only do it where it seems to need it. This garden seemed to need it. I was aware of that all growing season and just didn't do anything about it because I don't like using things and I like letting nature take its course. And I thought things would just sort themselves out. I was wrong. Where these cabbage are concerned, nothing sorted itself out. Now I still have cabbage and it's not the end of the world, but anyway, there we are. So anyway, I hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com. Don't forget to click the bell, and until next time, get out there, get at it, have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.